Alright, today we're going to be talking about sets of inequalities. Now, when we're talking about a set of inequalities, we're talking about when a variable has more than one stipulation. So instead of just like x is less than 7 or x is greater than negative 2, this would be as if we're putting them together. So you're going to either see an and or an or between them. And each of them is going to give you a different graph. So as far as it goes, let's assume right now that this would be an and. And so the graph for this, if it's got to fit both, it has to be less than 7. So it would have an open circle at 7, and we'd shade a little bit to the left. And it has to be greater than negative 2. So once again, it'd be an open circle at negative 2, and it's greater than, so I would shade to the right. So what my graph ends up looking like is I've got 2 points and everything filled in when it's an and. Now, let's say on the other hand, let's say it was x is less than negative 2 or x is greater than 7. So let's say that was the case. So once again, what I want to do is draw my number line, and I'd have a open circle at negative 2, but I'd shade to the left of negative 2, or x could be 7 and greater than 7. So once again, open circle at 7, but greater than, so I'd shade to the right. So when you're looking at these types of problems, if it's an and, normally 99% of the time, you're going to see it shaded in between your 2 points. You're going to have a point on your left and a point on your right, and you're going to shade between. And conversely, when it's or 99% of the time, you're going to see one dot on your left, and you're going to shade towards the left of that dot, and you're going to have a dot on the right, and you're going to shade to the right of that dot. Like I said, these are the cases for 99% of the problems that you're going to deal with. Occasionally, you'll see something different, but 99% of the time, if it's an and, you're going to see 2 dots with it shaded between, and if it's an or, you're going to see 2 dots with it shading in opposite directions. All right, so for A, we've got 3z minus 6 is greater than negative 12, and z plus 3 is less than 8. So first thing we have to do is solve for both equations. So first I'm going to add 6 to both sides over here. So I've got 3z is greater than negative 12 plus 6 is negative 6. And then divide both sides by 3. So I've got z is greater than negative 2. All right, and then over here, I just have to subtract 3 from both sides. So I've got z is less than 5. So when I do my graph, I've got 2 points. I've got negative 2, and I've got positive 5. And you're going to want to make sure that you set up your 2 points just like you normally would. So negative 2 would be further to the left, and 5 would be further to the right. So for negative 2, I've got an open circle, and then it says greater than. So my arrow's pointing towards the right, so I'm going to shade towards the right. But I'm only going to shade a little bit because I want to make sure that I don't overshade too much. And I've got z is less than 5. So open circle at 5, and then shade a little bit to the left because my variable's on the left, so point towards the left. And I end up with that scenario where if it's an and, you're going to shade in between. All right, so for B, we've got 2x is less than 14, and x minus 5 is greater than negative 2. So once again, I want to solve for both equations. So I want to divide both sides by 2. So I got x is less than 7. And I need to add 5 to both sides over here to get x by itself. So I'm left with x is greater than negative 2 plus 5 is 3. So here are my 2 equations. X is less than 7 and x is greater than 3. So when I do my graph, my 2 points are 3 and 7. So one thing I want to point out here is that even though I got them in different orders here, I got 7 here and 3 here, on my number line, I need to remember to set them up correctly. So 3 would be further to the left than 7 would be. All right, so once again, both of these are going to be open circles. And I need to shade to the left of 7, but to the right of 3. So once again, my graph is going to be all the space between. So for C, we have 2x minus 5 is greater than 13, and x minus 12 is less than or equal to 12. So once again, I need to solve for both equations. So over here on the right, I've got to add 5 to both sides. So I got 2x is greater than 18. Divide both sides by 2. So I got x is greater than 9. And over here, I have to add 12 to both sides. So I end up with x is less than or equal to 24. So on my number line, when I graph this, I'm going to have 9 and 24. I have an open circle at 9, but a closed circle at 24. So I need to shade to the right of 9, but to the left of 24. So once again, my graph is shading in between them, but I have an open circle and a closed circle. All right, so for D, we have u minus 8 is greater than or equal to 0, or u plus 7 is less than or equal to 5. So once again, the words change to or, but you're still going to do it the same way. First, I'm going to solve the left side. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So I got u is greater than or equal to 8. And on this side, I've got to subtract 7 from both sides. So I got u is less than or equal to 5 minus 7 would be negative 2. So on my number line, I've got negative 2 and positive 8. Both are closed circles. And I have to shade to the right of 8, but to the left of negative 2. So my graph has 2 dots, but they're going in opposite directions with their shading. So for E, we've got p plus 2 is greater than 17, or p minus 14 is less than or equal to negative 3. So once again, solve the left side, so subtract 2 from both sides. So you get p is greater than 15. And then over here, I've got to add 14 to both sides. So I got p is less than or equal to negative 3 plus 14 would be 11. So on my number line, my two numbers are 11 and 15. 15 is an open circle. 11 is a closed circle. And I've got a shade to the right of 15, but to the left of 11. So my graph is once again 2 points shading in opposite directions when it's an OR. All right, so for F, we have s plus 6 is greater than or equal to 20, and s minus 11 is less than negative 7. So, just like before, subtract 6 from both sides. So you get s is greater than or equal to 14. And over here, I have to add 11 to both sides. So I got s is less than positive 4. So on my number line, my two numbers are 4 and 14. 14 is a closed circle. 4 is an open circle. I need to shade to the right of 14, but to the left of 4. So once again, when it's an OR, I have 2 dots, and they're shading in opposite directions. All right, so for G, we have 10 is less than or equal to G plus 17, which is less than or equal to 15. So this is another form of AND. Basically what these graphs are doing is both of your equations are put together into one long equation. And the important thing to remember is normally when we do equations, you have to remember to do things to both sides. Now you've got 3 sides. Because if you were to draw lines down the middle for all of your inequalities, you've got 3 different sections. So whatever you do to one side, you have to do to all 3 sides. So I want to get rid of this positive 17. So I'd have to subtract 17 from all 3 sides. So what I end up with is 10 minus 17 is negative 7, is less than or equal to G, which is less than or equal to negative 2. So when I graph this, the bright side is when you've got these combined inequalities is it makes it really easy to graph, because I've got negative 7 here, negative 2 here, closed circle, and whenever it's set up like this, it's always going to be shade in between. So I've got my 2 dots, so I'm going to shade in between. All right, so for H, we've got negative 20 is less than 2b minus 2, which is less than or equal to 4. So once again, we've got to solve for b. So I'm going to add 2 to all three sides. So negative 20 plus 2 is negative 18, which is less than 2b, which is less than or equal to 4 plus 2 would be 6. And now I've got to divide all three sides by 2. So 18 divided by 2 would be negative 9, which would be less than b, which would be less than or equal to 6 divided by 2 would be 3. So on my graph, I've got negative 9 and 3. Negative 9 has an open circle, 3 has a closed circle, and like I said, whenever you've got it set up like this, you're always going to shade in between. Alright, so for I, we've got 6 is greater than 3z minus 18, which is greater than negative 9. So I've got to add 18 to all three sides. So 6 plus 18 is 24, which is greater than 3z, which is greater than negative 9 plus 18 would be positive 9. And then I've got to divide all three sides by 3. So 24 divided by 3 would be 8, which is greater than z, which is greater than 3. So when I graph this, I've got 8 and 3. Both of them are open circles, and I'm going to shade in between. So once again, the key things to remember is that if it's an AND, you're going to have 2 points, and 99% of the time you're going to shade in between. And if it's OR, you're going to have 2 points, and you're going to shade in opposite directions.